If you've been following the Cappuccino Club social TV channel for the last couple of months since we've implemented lockdown, you will know we've been talking about how businesses have been pivoting and adapting to COVID-19. Today, we've got a special guest from the business sector, Geoffrey Jacobs. He's the president and chair of the board of the Cape Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and we feel very privileged to have him with us today. So don't go away, we'll be right back. If you're just joining us, welcome to the Cappuccino Club social TV channel. I'm your host, Bridgetti Limbanda from Cape Town in South Africa. And today we've got a special guest from the business sector. You don't want to miss today's show. We are talking to Geoff Jacobs. He is the president and chair of the board of the Cape Chamber of Commerce and Industry. But first, let's welcome my co-host, Viola Manuel from the Cappuccino Club. Viola, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Brigitte. How are you doing? How was your day today? It's Friday. Yay day. How was your Friday?
I had a great day today. It definitely is a yay day. You know, end of the week, and looking forward to next week as always. There's always so much happening. You know, so many people tell me they're bored, but I honestly can tell you that since lockdown has started, I have been busier than ever. It's been quite a ride, and I'm looking forward to today's show.
Yeah, I know. It's just been busy. And really, I can't point out what the busyness has led to, but it's just been busy. And of course, everybody's sort of getting themselves ready. The beauty sector's opening again. We can all be seen in public again. You know, you'll be looking fabulous, even though you have your mask on. So, you know, there's lots of exciting things happening. Lots of businesses getting ready to reopen. With the president now, the cabinet sanctioning their opening. So I know there's a lot of stuff happening at the moment, more masks being sold, more sanitizers being sold. So there's quite a lot going on in the space. But I am also looking forward to engaging with Geoff just to get from, just his perspective on how the business community have actually, as a sort of general industry, how they've been coping with COVID.
Absolutely. And so for those of you who's not familiar with Geoff Jacobs, he comes from the Cape Flats, and that's significant, and we'll ask him to talk a little bit about that, because a lot of people, when they talk about the Cape Flats, they talk about it with some disdain, but we've had some amazing people like Geoff who grew up on the Cape Flats. After a successful career in teaching, he joined the corporate sector and eventually retired in 2015 as the HR director of Maersk, South Africa. And that is a huge corporation. And currently he runs his own management consultancy apart from being the chair and president of the Cape Chamber of Commerce. I think let's not waste any time. We've got a couple of things we'd like to chat with him about, and so we're going to bring him right onto the show. Good evening, Geoff, and welcome to the show.
Good evening, Brigitte, and good evening, Viola. Thank you very much for having me on your show.
Well, we are very excited to have you on our show. We've got so many questions we want to ask you, Geoff. But thank you, first of all, thank you for agreeing to be on the show. It's always great to have people of your caliber on the show. And of course, as part of your introduction, we found out that you were Cape Flats boykie, like they will say out there in Cape Town. And I think fabulous things have come from the Cape Flats. I'm speaking for myself as well. Fabulous things have come from the Cape Flats. But tell us a little bit about your background growing up. It was Youth Day on Tuesday. So just tell us a little bit about you growing up and how it actually led that you sort of ended up in the teaching profession, and tell us a little bit about your career, please.
So I'll try and keep that as brief as possible because we don't have a lot of time on this particular chat. But I grew up, as you've pointed out, on the Cape Flats. I attended primary, respectively, Athlone North Primary School and Athlone High School. And after finishing my schooling, went to UCT to do a teacher's diploma. Actually, I went to do law. And like many folk going to do law, they discovered that that's actually not for them. And my dad, who was a teacher, said, go and do a teacher's diploma to try and have something to fall back on, the mattress option, as they call it. And I loved teaching so much that I decided that was going to be my career. And so even though I left the teaching profession after about 15, 16 years to go into the corporate sector, teaching, training, human resources has been my life. And I've made that my life's journey, and I've made that my passion. So after teaching at Athlone High School, the school from which I matriculated, for a number of years, I then started a private school in District 6, Zonnebloem Nest School. Some of your listeners may know that school. And after 4.5 years at that school, joined the corporate sector, Southern Life, a great company to work for, a company with a strong focus on people, on the development of people. And so the culture was one that worked for me. But then, as many folk will know, Southern Life had its own challenges, went into a merger or a takeover acquisition with Momentum. And that was the point that I left Southern Life, joined Media 24 for a couple of years, 2 years, and then joined Saf Marine, which eventually was Maersk, taken over by Maersk. And the rest, I guess, is history. So I've had a long career in human resources. That's been my life. And when I took early retirement from Saf Marine or Maersk, I started an HR consultancy, and that's what I continue to do. And so because teaching has been such an important part of my life, ironically enough, now as an HR consultant, I spend quite a bit of my time working in schools on the Cape Flats and in our townships, where we work with leadership in schools. I come from a philosophy that says if you get leaders to step up and to take over their responsibility, magic begins to happen in organizations. And that's what we're beginning to do in schools. Besides that, I'm married. I'm married to Lynn. We have 2 adult kids, if I can call them that. My daughter's 36 and my son 33.
I think you can call them that, Geoff. I think you can call them adult. Parents, you know how we are.
And I have a grandson now of just over 7 months. And so that's been a brand new chapter for us, which is wonderful, except that he's in Joburg. So we're stuck in Cape Town, and we don't get to see him, unfortunately.
Oh, okay.
Oh, no. Geoff, one of my favorite questions that we like to ask people is how COVID-19 and lockdown has affected you personally, because, in speaking to so many people, we find that everyone has experienced it completely differently. How has it been for you personally?
So personally, it's, look, I've been working from home now for something like 3.5, 4 years. So that hasn't been a huge transition for me to make, except that as a consultant, you get to go out, you meet people, you go to other companies and the likes. And so that's been a little bit difficult for me to adapt to, because you're stuck in an office, you're stuck behind a laptop, and you're on Zoom or Teams or Meets for almost the entire day. So I find that personally, I'm spending a lot more time working than would have been the case had I been out visiting clients and the likes. Professionally, it's been difficult because, like many people have experienced, business has almost ground to a halt. And so that's been a challenge in itself.
Okay. Go ahead, Brigitte.
No, it's fine.
Okay. So Geoff, one of the things that we've been talking to a lot of business owners, and we've been speaking to them about how they have pivoted, adjusted, sort of transformed their businesses during this COVID period. But that's really been to specific businesses. So my question to you is just, how has the business community in general responded to COVID-19? And how has it really affected your work as the president and chairperson of the Cape Chamber of Commerce?
That's a great question. So let me start with the Cape Chamber of Commerce and Industry first. Within 2 days of the announcement of lockdown, the Cape Chamber of Commerce had moved entirely online. And in fact, I don't think there's anybody that's been in the building since lockdown was announced. And so the Cape Chamber has adapted to the new normal, as everybody calls it these days, seamlessly without any problem. And it seems unlikely that we will go back into a physical building within the next, certainly not before the end of this year. So as far as the Cape Chamber of Commerce and Industry is concerned, it's been a seamless and a smooth transition to the new normal. How has the business community responded to COVID-19? I think it depends largely on which sector you're in. So some sectors where it is possible to do work online, they've adapted quite easily. They've continued to do the work that they do. They continue to service their clients and the likes. And to a large extent, they've taken the lead from the government in terms of the regulations, the level of lockdown to a large extent. But some industries clearly, because they haven't been able to get into a factory, into an industrial complex and the likes, have been heavily impacted. So the Cape Chamber of Commerce comprises about 2,100 member companies, representing probably about 250,000 employees in total, so a significant number of people. The Cape Chamber's business community has responded to COVID-19 in varied ways. But most of the business owners that we've spoken to have said they're surviving, they're continuing to keep going, they're struggling, obviously, they're depending to some extent on support from government, the relief funds. But that's another story, of course, because the relief funding has been sporadic, has been erratic, hasn't come through as efficiently as people had hoped they would come through. We do think that some businesses will go to the wall. They won't come back. They won't survive, unfortunately. But mostly, we've seen innovation. We've seen people in an exciting way changing the business model and saying, we're here to survive. We're entrepreneurs. And we want to bring enterprise and entrepreneurship and innovation to the way in which we do things.
That is so exciting and encouraging to hear, because a lot of businesses have said, we've just had to become innovative. We've had to change the way we do things. So it's fantastic to hear that. I think the sobering aspect to your to the comment was the fact that there will be businesses that will not make it. Yeah. But most of our businesses are pivoting, and that's fantastic. Geoff, but just a follow-up question on your comment. So services that the Cape Chamber offers like certification and meetings and networking events and all of those kinds of things, have they taken all of that online as well?
All of that's gone online. The Cape Chamber probably runs about 200 events on an annual basis. I think we believe that by the end of this year, we're going to be closer to 300 events. Most of them, in fact, all of them online. And so we've continued to do what we've always done. We've continued to provide engagement for our members. We've continued to see portfolio committee meetings, our chapter meetings happening via Zoom, via the various platforms that exist. And the certification services that you speak about, they've continued. Most companies have now adapted to the fact that they don't get certificates in a physical format. They get certificates in a digital format. So that's the way in which things are working, and that's the migration that's taking place. And all of those things are positive for business.
Absolutely.
Wow, that's phenomenal and very impressive that the chamber was able to pivot within 2 days, as you said. A lot of companies have struggled, but 2 days is quite a record. So an interesting question, with that in mind, that I would like to know the answer to, and I know that there's a huge community of people behind me who would like to know the answer to this question. As Viola's laughing because she knows what's coming.
Okay.
It's not what is the secret of life.
I'm
No, it's not that.
I'm sitting in eager anticipation to hear what's coming.
So as a rule, businesses in South Africa in particular have always treated the idea of working from home as impossible across many sectors. And by default, that excluded mothers, the differently abled community, and people with disabilities. Somehow, COVID-19 has fixed that problem overnight. So my question to you is, do you think that COVID-19 will have an impact on reframing that thinking?
Well, I think in asking the question, Brigitte, you've already answered it. Absolutely. There's no doubt in my mind that COVID-19 has forced a rethink or reframing of that notion. So I come from the human resources background, and globally, human resources has been moving towards flexible work practices over a long time. Probably the last 10 years, people have been talking about working from home, telecommuting, all of the modern approaches to how one works. In South Africa, unfortunately, we're still stuck with this notion that you have to come to work, you have to clock in, your boss has got to see you at your desk, physically working, and that gives him the level of comfort, or her the level of comfort, that productive work is happening. COVID-19 has changed that overnight. And so now it's no longer about how you manage people in terms of them being physically in your sites, but how you manage people on what they produce, on productivity. And so whether you're a mother, whether you're a person with disabilities, all of the other categories that you've mentioned, all of those things are irrelevant. If you have access to a computer, if you have access to the internet, you can work from anywhere in the world. So COVID-19 has fixed that problem for us overnight. That's the fourth industrial revolution we've been talking about for a long time.
Geoff, can I ask a follow-up question on that?
Sure.
Bearing that in mind, that we've now made this massive shift to being able to work from home, how do you think that's going to impact middle management that essentially were in place to keep a watch over the workers?
Yeah, that's a tough question to answer, but it's an important question to ask because it speaks to the way in which we manage people. So when you ask the question about how is it going to impact middle management, you're really asking the question, how are we going to change our management practices? How are we going to change the way in which we get the best out of people? How do we motivate people? And obviously, as an HR practitioner, I've got very strong views on that. You don't manage people with a big stick. You don't manage people from a top-down perspective like we used to do in this country. The sort of dominating dictatorial approach to leadership, dictatorial approach to management. Those days are gone. You now manage people, you now support people in a way which says these are the outcomes that we're expecting from you, and these are dates by which we'd like to see those things delivered. And whether you do that in the middle of the night, whether you do that sitting on the beach, you're not allowed to be on the beach yet, I don't think. It's irrelevant as long as you get the job done. It's going to impact our organizations, there's no question about it. And there will be a lot of debate about whether you need the middle management echelon that you've got in most companies. I think the view is that most companies are probably oversubscribed. They're probably overstaffed. And we see that as a Chamber of Commerce, we don't become involved in political discussions. But you see that most obviously in the public sector. The public sector has got layers upon layers of management. If you stripped out most of those layers, I think you'd get greater productivity, you'd get better efficiency, and you'll have a far more cost-effective operation in place. I don't know if that answers your question, Brigitte, but it's an important question to ask.
It does, yes.
It does. I also have a follow-up question, though, and that is, when we think about business owners and the mindset, in your opinion, do you really think that people have that as business owners, especially sort of small, medium-sized business owners, that they've actually really bought into the idea that people could be more productive? or are they just sort of adhering to the rules right now and recognizing that there's huge risks and they are going to be held liable for any additional costs, PPE, etc.? And so they're saying to their staff, stay at home. Do you really think that they've bought into this idea, or is it just that right now it's what they're supposed to do, and bringing people back into the workplace is going to have a major capital, sort of cost, cash outlay? What is your opinion on that?
So again, I go back to the chamber with 2,100 members. Probably 60% of them are small, medium, micro enterprises, small business owners and the likes. They want to be in business. They want to be in business to make money. They want to do whatever's in the interest of their employees and in the interest of their customers. My personal view is that most businesses will do what's needed in order to be in business and in order to be profitable. I don't think there's a compliance issue. If you're an entrepreneur, you think outside the box, you're lateral in your thinking, you come with innovative ideas, and the idea that you're doing what needs to be done simply because it's a compliance requirement, that's foreign to most small business owners. And I have to say that because most small business owners don't like the idea of compliance. They want to do enterprising things. They want to maximize profits for their business, and they will be innovative in the way in which they do that. So our view as a chamber from day one has been, and I know it's a controversial view and people challenge us on that view, but from day one we're saying put the responsibility on business owners. We live in a country where there's too much power put in the hands of government. And so our view as a chamber has always been, you need a lighter touch as government, put responsibility in the hands of business owners, because they will do what's necessary to maximize profits and at the same time protect their employees and protect their customers. Okay,
so here's another very important HR question to you, sir. We're dealing with this crisis. How can business owners make sure that they are actually making effective decisions for their businesses during this crisis?
So decision making is a complex process. And if you're a good leader, you're a leader that has your eyes and your ears to the ground. So you're taking in what's happening around you. You're taking advice from wherever you can get advice. And as a chamber, and certainly my role as the president and as the spokesperson for the chamber in a sense, is not to speak from a personal perspective only, but to speak to as many people as I can, to canvass opinions from as many people as one can, to understand what data is saying, to understand what science is saying, and then to make decisions on the basis of all of the information at your disposal. So where we've been quite critical is that many decisions that have been made, regulatory decisions that have been made on the basis of an ideological position, not on the basis of information that's at your disposal. So get the facts, understand the facts, get perspectives from other people, and then as a good leader, taking all of those things into account, make the best decision in the interest of your business and in the interest of your people. I don't know if that answers the question, Viola, but I would say that good leadership demands that one scans the environment, that one is alive to what's happening around you, that you take in as much information, you do as much research as you can, and on the basis of all that information, all the perspectives that you're able to get, then make the decision that needs to be made. But then have the courage of your conviction to stand by those decisions. Because one of the big challenges we're seeing at the moment, and we see this most starkly in the educational space, there are lots of different perspectives. Everyone has an opinion on whether school should open or shouldn't open and the likes. At some point, you've got to take all of that information and then make a decision and stand by that decision.
Yeah. And you know, when I started the Cappuccino Club, one of the main things that I looked at as an objective was exactly what you're talking about, you know, creating a network where there's also an opportunity to bounce ideas off like-minded people, similar people who find themselves in similar positions, which
Yeah.
I, just, creating a safe space for women to actually speak to each other about what they could be doing to help each other and just advise each other. And that's really what started this whole thing. And I think that's also very important, is that you consult broadly.
Correct.
I think your whole point is absolutely valid.
But you consult, Viola, by not only speaking to people who think the way you do. And that's, for me, is the business rationale around diversity. So you want to get different perspectives. So you want in your boardrooms to have a broad range of demographics represented, to have gender representativity in your boardrooms. And unfortunately, in the South African workspace at the moment, our boardrooms are still too male dominated and too pale dominated, if I may say so, in a public forum such as this.
Absolutely.
And I think our decisions are the poorer for that. The more broadly you can get perspectives into the debate, into the discussion, the richer the decisions you make and the better the decisions you make. That's, for me, is the business case for diversity.
Yeah, absolutely.
Geoff, could we close with your advice for businesses or the sectors that are struggling at the moment, that are not able to innovate? What is your advice to them?
Yeah, so a lot depends on your business model. A lot depends on the sector that you're in. We know that some sectors have been completely locked down. They're not going to be allowed to operate until they get to level 1. We do know that even a sector such as the hospitality and the tourism sector, which I believe only opens up in level 1, are beginning to do some exciting and innovative things. So the only advice I can give to business owners, to leaders, think outside the box. This is an opportunity for you to recreate your business, to redefine your business model. It's an opportunity that's been forced on you. And unless you're going to grab that opportunity, you're going to grab the opportunity to reframe what your business is about and look for the opportunities that are there. You're not going to be in business for much longer. You're not going to survive.
I think that's great advice for us to end off with. Boda, did you have anything else before we close?
No, I do have one. If I can, just one last question. I think with business owners have got quite a nice arsenal. But mostly with entrepreneurs, your energy, your focus, your resilience, those are all part of your arsenal.
Yeah.
How do you actually make sure that during such a prolonged state of crisis, because no one anticipated that it was going to be this long when it started, and no one certainly expected, now we're talking about the effects of this is going to be felt for another 2 years.
Yeah.
How do you maintain that energy and focus? How do you get business owners to where do you get that resilience from?
Yeah. So I think it was Simon Sinek, the guy who said, start with why. Ask yourself the question, why have you gone into business in the first place? What was the vision? What was the passion that drove you to start what you started? It's that vision that's got to constantly be in front of you. It's that passion that's got to constantly be in front of you. Because if you're clear about why you're in business, then you will ride the wave of uncertainty. You will ride the wave of instability, which COVID-19 has brought us. And it's going to be with us. We know it's going to be with us for a while. But if you're clear about why you're in business and what your vision is for your business, I think that you will develop the resilience and you will develop the energy and the staying power, the stamina to stay in business.
Absolutely. Geoff, it was wonderful chatting to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me on your program. Thank you for the chat. I've enjoyed it.
Good.
I think that was the best advice to end off with. If you're out there, you're watching this program and you were wondering, how do you maintain your energy? What do you do? I think that was excellent advice. Geoff, thank you so much. We really do appreciate that you joined us today.
Thanks, Brigitte, and thank you, Viola, for having me on your show.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Have a great weekend.
You too.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us, everyone, and have a great weekend from us too.
Bye-bye.